Shalom TV, celebrating Jewish culture. Funding for Shalom TV has been provided by the following. And by viewers like you.
Well, I thought, without getting into too much philosophy, and again, thank you so much for you being here so early. I want to thank Malcolm and Ellen for arranging that. If I may, let me start by giving you a rundown of my run-in with Fayyad yesterday. And this is not just anecdotal. I think it's indicative of the asymmetry in the negotiations with the Palestinians, or it's indicative of what we really are contending with. Because it's not just the concessions on the grounds and the security arrangements. We're talking here about a different cultural, I would say a difference, a cultural difference. The fact I came to New York, one of the reasons I'm here today is that I came to represent Israel in the Donors Conference. What is the Donors Conference? Is to help the Palestinians build a state, something that was not obvious, but they are building a state with our consent, building institutions, helping them economically. We are taking great deal of risks by doing that. I mentioned to them that just 3 weeks ago, 4 Israelis were killed, gunned down, point-blank execution style in Bet Haggai, and we didn't stop negotiations. We didn't put preconditions, and you know what? We didn't even reinstate the checkpoints which were supposed to protect those Israelis. And they were killed partly because we moved the checkpoints, because we want to allow movement and access. We want to allow a better life for the Palestinians. Just 3 days ago, we had a Qassam rocket, or a Grad, which is a bigger Qassam, fall in Ashkelon, just 100 feet from a school. And I told them, God forbid, it would have hit its target, we would have had a different circumstance as we speak. And here we have the Palestinians who continue to talk about really things which put obstacles in moving ahead. And the fact that I was there talking about help for the Palestinians, I was announcing yesterday, I was very proud, I thought it would be appreciated, 90 new projects in Gaza, to a total of 70 projects that we're doing in Gaza with the donors, let alone Judea and Samaria. And all we hoped for, a non-political event, because this is there with Fayyad to help the Palestinians. This is not the main effort. The main effort is going between the Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu, and Abu Mazen, try to get a political settlement, like a top-down. What we were trying to do is kind of an auxiliary track, ground up, helping the Palestinians. No politics was to be involved. We come to the statement which sums up our endeavor, and I must say that all countries appreciated what Israel is doing, and we have been doing a lot, both in Gaza and in Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank. And then they come and talk about the fact that we do everything. Why are we gathered? Why were we gathered in New York? Not to waste time of all these distinguished personalities. Tony Blair was there, Secretary General, Senator Mitchell, many others. And they said, we are doing all of this here for what? To achieve the goal of what? A two-state solution. And I said, well, two-state solution, it's only half of the formula. We have to talk about two-state solution for two peoples. This was the formula. By the way, I didn't get into politics because I could have demanded to put there 2 states for 2 peoples, 1 Jewish and 1 Palestinian. I didn't go to that length because I didn't want to introduce politics. I said 2 states for 2 peoples. And guess what? They said, no way. Fayyad, supposedly the most moderate of Palestinians, refused to sign on a 2 states for 2 peoples. So I couldn't just subscribe to that, and I said I'm not going to sign on that. And there wasn't a consensus, and I canceled the press conference that I had to do with him. Because again, if they do not have the decency to talk about a most objective, generic 2 states for 2 peoples, I think that there is a major, fundamental problem here that I'm not sure we fully comprehend the extent and the meaning of that. And this is what we face. We face an asymmetric negotiations where we are giving. We are going not halfway, we're going 90% their way, and they do not budge, they do not move. Look at the tactics of negotiations. When 10 months ago we decided on this moratorium, it was unprecedented, was very painful, and it's the same Palestinian negotiators, and there must be some hypocrisy there, because the same Palestinian negotiators who we face now did not put this as a precondition only 2 years ago in intensive talks that they had with previous Israeli governments. They never stopped the negotiations when during Rabin's time, during Barak's time, during Olmert's time, during Sharon time, and they, in their own admission, say that the settlement growth went up by leaps and bounds during these times of negotiations. And here they come, and they find an Israeli government which is, it has its ideology, it has to be true to its platform and to its voters. And here we are taking painful concessions. And not only they do not appreciate it, and they put it as a precondition, but they also use extortion tactics. I cannot name it by any other term. Look what happened. 10 months ago, we agreed on the moratorium. The idea was that with the moratorium, we will encourage them for direct talks. What happened? They said, this moratorium is not serious. This moratorium is not adhered to. It's a sham. We're not going to enter any negotiations with the Israelis because the moratorium is not really a moratorium. 9.5 months elapse, wasting time. Here we come, just 2 weeks before the end of the moratorium, and then they say, this is the best thing. This moratorium is the best thing that happened. It has to continue. The same moratorium that they were scorning and they were, talking down. Now they say, no, without this moratorium, we cannot engage into talks after 9.5 months of wasting time. So this is an extortion. This is not a way to conduct negotiations. This will compromise Israel's stand, not only politically and not only morally, vis-a-vis these 350,000 Israelis, Jewish people who live today. And why should they pay the price, especially when we don't see the end goal? And we told the Palestinians, and we tell everyone who wants to hear, settlements have never been an obstacle to peace. You want to know why? Just look at the track record. Sinai, back in 1981, we took down all the settlements of the Sinai, including a major town in Yamit. We did it. Disengagement with Gaza, we took down 21 settlements, communities, flourishing communities, 3 generations of Jewish life in Gaza, eradicated in 1 day, and 4 more in Samaria. So don't tell us this is an obstacle to peace, especially as we made the offers to take down for real peace, with the offers of Olmert and the offers of Barak and others. So to single out, to cherry pick one issue of many difficult issues, but this is not the only issue. We could have put preconditions about the Jewish state, about refugees, about Jerusalem, about security arrangements. We have many, about incitement, boycotts and others. We said, this is our expectations, these are demands, these are legitimate demands to be discussed in the negotiating table. But we don't put any of this as a precondition. Even Jerusalem we didn't put as a precondition. So to take out the settlement and put it as a precondition, to waste 9.5 months and now to ask for more. And what do we hear from different very distinguished politicians around the world? And I was shocked to hear a very good friend, a personal friend of mine, Mr. Kouchner, the foreign minister of France. And we have the greatest relations with this French government, and we appreciate very much what they do on the issues of Iran and others. But yet, I mean, I listened to him. We were next to each other in a press conference, and he was saying, he was asked about the moratorium. He said, the problem with the moratorium is that the Palestinians will walk out if Israel doesn't continue the moratorium. The Palestinians will not agree to that. They will walk out. So what is his conclusion? We have to put the pressure on Israel to continue the moratorium, not to put the pressure on the Palestinians not to walk out, not to talk to the Palestinians about a win-win situation, not a zero-sum game. And this is the wrong attitude. This will take Israel in a, what Arik Sharon used to say, the corrales, you know, where they take the bulls into the slaughterhouse. You know, you get into this corrales, and there's no way to escape. And of course, we will not do that. We will not do that. Even with a moratorium, and I say here very seriously, we are ready to meet the Palestinians halfway. We're not going to, and I say it with great pain. I say it with great pain, but we're not going to renew, you know, construction in such a magnificent way. We're going to be very, very responsible about it, to address the needs of the populations. As I mentioned, 350,000 people live there. They should not pay the price in advance and compromise their own lives or own security. So we say, listen, we will have to do what we need to do, and at the same time, we will walk with you the road of negotiations, everything on the table. And if you put everything on the table, also from a practical point of view, you can allow leaders to trade concessions. If you go in a vertical way, that, you know, first of all, let's deal with settlements. Then you hit a brick wall, and then what? Everything breaks down. No, everything has to be in the same, in a context on that. 3 days. I hope that this is just maybe brickmanship that the Palestinians play, but we cannot continue this moratorium the way it started. But as I said, we are willing to be very responsible in the future. We did not walk out when 4 Israelis were killed and with the Qassam rockets. We expect the Palestinians to do the same if there is really good faith on their side, if there really is willingness to move ahead. And we, let alone, you know, the culture of hatred. You know, we were at the donors conference again yesterday, and Fayyad complained that he has a shortfall of about $350 million or $450 million. That's fine. We encouraged Israel for the donors to give more money. We are giving them money. But let's make sure that the money is used for really positive things, for building the institutions, for helping the economy. If you look, and they're very cleverly hiding it in the numbers, but we have to read the numbers as well, all the fine prints. And you see in the budget, the Palestinian budget, we see a huge sum for what they call the Shahid Fund. What is the Shahid Fund? They are glorifying Shahids, they are commemorating the big things for them, and they help their families. The same way as there is a boycott fund. What is the boycott fund? To make sure that they can prosecute and persecute any Palestinians who would buy Israeli products or will cooperate with Israel. And of course, not to mention the textbooks and everything else. Well, we could have broken down, or we could have just walked out for many, many things. We don't do it because we really believe that we need to achieve a political settlement and to achieve peace. Also, I would like to say that the position, if I'm in my head here, because I'm also on the head of a politician here, you know, Israel Beitenu is the second largest party in the coalition, the third largest in Israel. And I believe, you know, we have I guess, a reputation of being extremists and whatever. I think we're very pragmatic and very responsible. We are backing the Prime Minister. We have not threatened to walk out because we want to give the negotiations a chance. And we're there with the Prime Minister. We were there with the Prime Minister when he had his Bar Ilan talk. We were there with the moratorium. And we are here also trying to find a solution. For us, it's not all or nothing. So, and we are supposedly on the, you know, extreme side. I don't think we are, but and here, I believe we are more pragmatic and much more moderate than the most moderates of the Palestinians. Because if Fayyad is the most moderates and he wouldn't sign on a two-state solution, or he wouldn't scratch this fund for shaheeds and fund for boycotts, that tells something. So where are we now? Well, we're not going to tire. We're going to continue. And if the Palestinians want to score points instead of bettering their position and their people's situation, we have a problem. We really have a problem. There is one issue that I also want to clarify, although I'm sure here it doesn't need too much explanation about our demand for a Jewish state. Israel as the homeland for the Jewish people is not something that, and Abu Mazen, by the way, he's in town here, very cleverly says, what the Palestinians define themselves, but what we call them. You know, everyone has the right to call themselves whatever they want. They can call themselves the Jewish kingdom. They can call themselves whatever. And I tell him, listen, we do not define ourselves by the Palestinians. We have the right for self-determination just like any other people and just like the Palestinians. We have been defined by UN Resolution 181 of Kaftet November of 29th of November 1947 as a Jewish state. By the way, in my room, in my office in Jerusalem, I have a replica, a copy of President Truman recognition of the state. And he called, thereby we, de jure and de facto, recognize the Jewish state. And then they tell him, well, they call themselves Israel. So he crosses the Jewish state and says Israel. So for him, it's interchangeable. Anyway, so fine, we are determining ourselves, that's fine. We don't need the recognition from the Palestinians to bolster our ego or self-confidence or anything. And I told the Palestinians, I don't need you to say it in Hebrew. Say it in Arabic. Why you say it in Arabic? Because this is the real truth of finality of claims. It's not just a piece of paper that we said, okay, we end the claims. You end the claims by recognizing Israel as the Jewish state. And being a Jewish state, of course, is not just a matter of a religion. You all know that Judaism is ethnicity, it's a way of life, it's a nationality, it's civilization, and this is what we are. Israel is Jewish just like France is French. And like the US is American. And it doesn't preclude others to live there with full civil rights. All civil rights to minorities, to every Israeli, but no national rights to any other people but the Jewish people on the land of Israel. That's just it. This is what is the meaning of Israel as the homeland of the Jewish people. No national rights for any other people, but all civil rights to all who live there. And the fact that they will not sign on that, that again begs the question, what do they really want? Do they want a Palestinian state? Or maybe they want two Palestinian states? Or maybe they want one Palestinian state and one dual nationality state? I don't know. This is the time to sort out the things, because we cannot gamble on Israel's future. We do not want to reach a finality with the Palestinians and then import the conflict to inside Israel with the Israeli Arabs. And I see them at the Knesset. Ahmed Tibi, a very fine, charming guy. You talk to him, he's a philosopher, but he's very extreme. What does he say? He said Israel is not a homeland of the Jews. It should be the homeland of all its nationalities, not even its citizens, all its nationalities. He wants maybe a federation, you know, the federation of the Galilee Arabs and the Negev Arabs and others. And of course, once there is a Palestinian state, why not, following the Kosovo and Nagorno-Karabakh and so many other examples, they would want to join the Palestinian mother state. Anyway, this is something that we have to think about now. So it's not being stubborn, it's not being tough. This is where we need to sort out all the things now, as we are willing to sort out all the things that are important to the Palestinians. So this is where we stand now, and not to talk about other problems in the region. We have the Hezbollah acting up, trying to take over the Lebanese army, you know, again, very cleverly. After 1701, the UN Security Council resolutions was taken following, you know, ending the second Lebanon war in 2006. The one achievement was that they repelled, throughout Hezbollah from our borders. Fine. more robust UNIFIL. But then what happens? We always wanted the Lebanese army to exercise the sovereignty of the Lebanese government and actually to deploy all the way in the south, which they did. And then what? So Hezbollah takes over the Lebanese army. This is the idea. So we have to be very careful. I was in Washington just last week, very important talks, and they asked me, what about continuing supply of arms to the Lebanese? I say, well, of course I prefer that there won't be any, but we do understand the interest, also of American interest, and but if you continue to supply arms to Lebanon, it cannot be with a free check. You have to put benchmarks, and you have to insist how these arms should be used, what type of arms, which will not be changing the balance there, but mainly how it will be used. The same goes with Saudi Arabia, and we do understand the need for American exports and American jobs, although I understand that the numbers were inflated in the Wall Street. It was written just a week ago that this deal, $60 billion transactions with the Saudis, will create 70,000 jobs. I understand it's much less, but it doesn't matter. That's fine. But just make sure that Israel's qualitative edge is maintained. And there are many ways to keep it. And this is also what I told the administration, and this is also what I told Congress when I was there last week. Iran is the major problem. By the way, you heard of the Yahunt, the new cruise missiles that the Russians are supplying now Syria. It's a game changer. It's a very dangerous cruise missile which actually hugs the water, so it cannot be detected. And that's a new technology which can put at risk any marine transportation in the Middle East. In the hands of the Syrians, which can leak into the Hezbollah, it's something very serious. We're going to ask for clarifications from the Russians. We hope that the delivery will not be made. Iran, you saw Ahmadinejad here. I think it's shameful that he was allowed to the UN. It's just like bringing Hitler to the League of Nations in the 30s. The writing there, just like today, was on the wall, but it was a paralysis in the international community. And they feared him. They realized his danger, his madness, but they didn't do anything about it. The situation is somewhat different, and we applaud, of course, the United States leadership on arranging and successfully bringing the international community to a unity of position on Iran. But it's not really enough. Now the key is enforcement. I think it's a great success that Congress then complemented the UN Security Council resolutions or sanctions with their own sanctions, which were followed suit by Brussels, by the Europeans, by Canada, Australia, South Korea, and Japan. I think that Iran is beginning to feel the crunch. We should do a better job in talking to the Iranian people that it's not against them, but against this regime, this very illegitimate regime. And we will continue. Again, I talked in Washington about doing a better job with the Voice of America in Farsis. By the way, BBC in Farsi is doing a good job. Modestly, we have our Farsi Voice of Israel. I think it's like 2 hours a day or something like that. They called me a few weeks ago to do a live interview, and I was amazed to at the studio receive phone calls from Iran, from people that say you're doing the right thing. This regime does not represent us. So we need to continue and ratchet up the pressure there. This is the only way to influence this regime, which stirs the pot everywhere globally, not just with this Hamas and Hezbollah in Morocco and in Egypt and in Bahrain, the attempted coup just a few days ago, and Saudi Arabia, but also here in your backyard with Venezuela. Very dangerous things going on between Venezuela, Caracas, Damascus, and Tehran. So maybe it's not the most bright picture that we have on the horizon or the international scene, but at the same time we have to remember that we have a lot going on for us. Israel joined the OECD. We're very proud of that. This will allow us also to actually spread our wings and soar more in the international scenes. We were very much praised for what we did in Haiti, and with joining the OECD, we're going to actually triple our mashav, you know, our like USAID and in collaborations with Germany, with the USAID here, and we're going to work much harder in Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia, Central Europe, and we do see on bilateral issues that we can really connect on the basis of interest and basis of value sharing. And we do need to create what we call the moral majority. We cannot beat the automatic majority of the Arabs and Muslims, but we need to create a moral majority, certainly the European countries, because I think there is a growing realization that bashing Israel, I mean, they attack Israel, but they aim at all of the Western civilization. And we are in the trenches. You know, the war, the political war, delegitimization, after failing to take us on militarily, economically with boycotts or with terror, they try this political warfare, and now this is at the forefront. And Malcolm, we appreciate very much your task force, rapid reaction, and also thinking strategically how to combat this really defaming Israel, trying to take it the route of apartheid South Africa, and make us a pariah state. This is really now a major front that we have. We cannot do it alone. We'll have to do it with you. We have to do it with other friends of Israel all around the globe, whether it's Christians, whether there are some others. We must do it, because again, we are just the canary, as they used to say, but it's directed against all of us. And other than that, the Israeli economy is great. I can tell you it's quite, I don't want to brag here, but we will continue to do what we need to do. Can you believe we found oil now? And you know, we used to be so frustrated that throughout our existence, we never found a drop of oil. All around us there were oil, but they told us, you know, you were not promised oil, you were promised the milk and land of milk and honey. So what we had to do, we had to rely on our high tech. And today, in today's day and age where human knowledge, it doubles itself every 14 months. We are right there at the forefront. We live off our intellectual property. We live off our brains, and this is just endless and limitless. And we're very proud of this. By the way, the Startup Nation, did you read the book? It's they have to make a movie out of it. I hope that would be good for branding Israel. Ido here is working on branding Israel. But now, hopefully with the oil now, when we don't need it as much, we found it. So maybe this is also a good sign for where we stand in the world. And here, we are here at the UN. We also have a new policy vis-a-vis the UN of normalizing relations with them, of more cooperation and more participation. We sent just before Rosh Hashanah, we sent a contingent of 15 policemen to Haiti for law and order, to work together with UN forces. And this is also a way of Israel, as I said, spreading its wings and participating in the world in a very constructive way. You know, we also are part of the new agenda, you know, with the climate change and combating desertification and combating hunger and desalinization, everything, and clean tech and finding sources of alternative energy. We are right there. We are proud to be there with our, again, modest capacity, but we are there in every forum. We were there in every forum talking about what we can offer. We want to learn from others, but we want to cooperate, and we don't want to be branded only by the conflict. And this is what we say. And with the United States, you know it. And the relationship with the United States is so strong because it's not just government to government. It's people to people. And you are the ones responsible for this. And everywhere we go, we see consistently the polls in America, 60% and up approval rating when it comes to Israel. We appreciate it very much. This is very important. We would like to replicate that to Europe and other places. So there should be a firewall between the conflict and bilateral relations. Why should we all compromise our interests? And believe me, it's just as an interest of Japan and Europe to do trade with us and to do science cooperation and other things. Why should they limit themselves because of threat of the Arabs or the Palestinians? So this is the goal to continue. We have done it all along, very, very successfully. In the last 63 years, there was no day of rest and peace, yet we always planted for the future. We always worked on the industry, on the agriculture, on academic excellence and everything else that we can do because, President Peres says that the greatest thing that the Jews invented or brought into the world is dissatisfaction. We're never satisfied. But I think also we brought a lot of hope, because just think that against all these odds, we have not only survived, but we prospered. Because never for a dull moment we doubted in the future, and against all these threats, we continue to plant a tree, bring industry up, and this is what we'll continue to do with great help from you. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who can send a tax-deductible contribution of $36 or more to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media to help support our programming. Tax-deductible checks may be made out to GEM and mailed to GEM, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York, 10471. Please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD, and we thank you for your kind support.